All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about one of the oldest and honestly, one of the most powerful tools on the entire web, the HTML table. We're going to take what can often be a messy pile of data and turn it into something that's clear, interactive, and believe it or not, lightning fast. Okay, let's be real. We've all been there, right? You've got this absolutely massive spreadsheet. It's full of critical information, and somebody says, hey, put this on the website. Sounds simple, but what you usually end up with is just chaos. A total mess that's pretty much impossible for anyone to read or actually use. But what if I told you the solution has been right under our noses since the very beginning of the web? That's right. The humble table tag is going to be our hero today. It was literally designed for this job, and we're about to unlock some of its hidden superpowers.
Okay, section 1. What is a table, really? Let's get down to the foundation. Because what a table is actually for has been, well, a source of debate for years.
So let's get one thing straight right now. Way back in the dark ages of the web, developers used tables for, well, for everything. Headers, footers, page columns, the whole shebang. That is a huge no-no today. Modern standards are crystal clear. Tables are for displaying data. For page layout, we use CSS. And this isn't just me being a stickler for the rules. It's a fundamental thing called semantics, and it has massive implications for accessibility. So when I say tabular data, what do I actually mean? It's simple. Just think of a spreadsheet. If your information fits neatly into a grid, with rows and columns, where you can look across a row and down a column to find a specific piece of information, then congratulations, my friend. You've got yourself some tabular data. And building a basic table is kind of like playing with building blocks. You start with the main table tag. That's the wrapper for everything. Then inside that, you make a TR for every single row. And you fill those rows with cells. You use thir for your headers, they're the bold centered ones, and TD for your regular data. That's it. That's the basic blueprint for pretty much every table you'll see on the web. All right, section 2, making tables readable, the glow up. So a plain unstyled table, it works, but man, is it ugly. With just a tiny bit of CSS, we can make it absolutely shine. And just look at the difference a little styling makes. On the left, you've got the browser default. It's cramped, it's hard to read, it's just a wall of text. But on the right, that is the exact same data, just transformed. It's clean, it's professional, and it's so much easier to understand. Here's one of my favorite pro tips for clean table design. It's a CSS property. See, by default, table cells have their own separate borders, which creates that kind of clunky, gapped look. But if you just add border collapse, it merges them all into a single clean line. It is such a tiny change, but the impact is huge. And here are a few more quick tips to instantly level up your tables. First, add some padding to your cells. Give that content some room to breathe. Second, align your text properly. Best practice is usually text to the left, numbers to the right. And finally, and this is a big one, use what's called zebra striping. You just give every other row a slightly different background color. It makes it so much easier for our eyes to follow a single row of data all the way across the screen. Section 3. Tables for everyone. The conscience. So, our table looks great now. But can everyone use it? A truly great table has to be accessible. This number from the World Health Organization is exactly why this section is so critical. 253 million people. That's the number of people worldwide living with a visual impairment. For them, visual cues just don't work. They rely on screen readers to interpret the web, and without the right code, a data table becomes a completely meaningless jumble of words and numbers. We can, and we absolutely must do better. And HTML gives us all the tools we need. First, add a caption. It's an element that goes right inside the table, and it gives a quick summary of what the data is all about. Then, group your rows. Use thead for the header, tbody for the main data. And this one is crucial. Add the scope attribute to your headers. Scope equals call tells the screen reader, hey, this header is for the whole column. And scope equals row says it's for the row. This is how we build those connections in code that sighted users just see automatically. Section 4.
Adding superpowers. The power-up. Okay, our table is styled, it's accessible. Now, let's make it interactive. Let's give it some real power.
Because these are the features users always ask for, right? They want to click a column header and just sort the data. Or they need a button to download the whole thing as a CSV file to use in another program. This is where we go from a static page to a dynamic tool.
And you know what? Adding a download as CSV button is surprisingly simple with a bit of JavaScript. The logic is really straightforward. First, you just grab all the rows and cells from your table. Then you loop through them and build a big string of text, formatted like a CSV file. And finally, you create a temporary, invisible link with that data, and you just tell the browser to click it. Poof, a file downloads. No server required. Now, for the more complex stuff, like live filtering as you type, or sorting or breaking a huge table into multiple pages, you don't have to build all that from scratch. There are some incredible JavaScript libraries out there that do all the heavy lifting for you. One of the most popular is called data tables, and it is an absolute game changer.
All right, Section 5, Taming Big Data, the Titan. So what happens when your data isn't just big, but it's truly mind-bogglingly massive? This is where performance becomes everything.
So get this. Here's a real-world example from a developer named Pat David. He had a table with over 5,000 rows and 75 columns. That's almost 400,000 individual cells. The data itself was sent from the server super fast, but the browser would just hang for ages, trying to draw all of that on the screen. The page was taking a full minute to become usable. A full minute. But with one simple little trick, he dropped that render time from 60 seconds all the way down to just 6. That is an insane 10x performance boost. And that's the difference between a user getting frustrated and just leaving your site versus getting their data almost instantly.
So what was this magic trick? Well, it came from the best place, a random, innocuous comment on Stack Overflow. And it was a reminder of a key piece of browser logic. Any element that you style with display none isn't actually part of the browser's render tree. The browser knows it's there, but it doesn't have to calculate its size or position, which is the really slow part. So the trick itself is just beautiful. You start by hiding the table with CSS, display none. This lets the browser build the entire table structure in memory, which is fast, without the performance-killing step of actually trying to draw it. Then, once the page is fully loaded, a tiny piece of JavaScript just flips the style back to display table. The browser then renders the fully formed table all at once, which is dramatically faster. And that's the full journey. We started with just raw, chaotic data, we gave it structure, and we styled it so it was clear. We made it accessible so it works for everyone. We gave it superpowers like sorting and exporting. And finally, we optimized it to handle huge amounts of data with incredible speed. You know, when you really think about it, a well-crafted table is so much more than just a grid of facts. It's a tool for understanding, for finding patterns, for discovery. It tells a story with data. So the next time you're staring down a spreadsheet of chaos, remember the power of that humble table tag. And just ask yourself, what story is your table going to tell? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.